Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out the second half of the Jurassic World Captivz Clash Edition Wave 2. I actually had started this quite a while ago, but then the Dominion versions came out, so I kind of stopped and jumped to the Dominion ones, but I actually recently have had a few requests to finish off this wave of these figures, so I figured why not? Might as well get the rest of them up now. And you can see we have quite a few different figures here in the second half of this wave. We've got a Spinosaurus, an Ankylosaurus, a Dimorphodon, a Stegosaurus. The new species as far as this wave goes would be a Pachycephalosaurus. Another new species is the Parasaurolophus. Another new species was the Metricanthosaurus. And then we have a Pteranodon, which we have had prior. So some pretty darn cool figures were included in this wave. Really exciting stuff. Again, especially to have a few new species entering the wave. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at all of these right now. Now, as far as figures we have had in the line in the past, one of which is definitely the Stegosaurus. And you can see that, first of all, the front half of this guy is not sitting in there too well. That is an issue I had with quite a few of these figures from Wave 2 of the Clash Edition, where the joint's not snapping together, all that well. I think I have to try maybe a hot water, cold water trick with these guys. I just haven't done that yet. But as far as the Stegosaurus goes, it's the exact same sculpt we have had in the past from the Captivz line. Almost like a juvenile type appearance, I think, for the Stegosaurus, because the head sculpt is really big, way bigger than it should be. I think the rest of the body looks pretty much like, a Stegosaurus, like an adult version would look, but that head kind of makes it look a little bit more baby-like, so it's something that I always took away from this figure. But outside of that, there's some beautiful paintwork on this one. I think we've got some nice mixtures of like different off-whites and grays, as well as blacks that are just kind of all over the place on this, which I feel like kind of gives it a little bit of a realistic look. I like that the body gets pretty dark. It also really nicely highlights the scales. You can see that they're really nicely in the stomach region. There are also some black stripes that run down from the top of the dinosaur through the course of the figure. You can see that there on both sides. Not quite as obvious over here, but it is there. You can also see again that we have a black eye, and I like that the coloration kind of lightens a little bit as far as that kind of blackish wash that they have on the figure in the face. So it allows the face, I think, to shine a little more than if it were just this really dark tone of color through the entire body. Definitely appreciate the fact that they did that. But you also have a little bit of purple there on the inside of the mouth, just to give some inside of the mouth type coloration. The Thagomizers, unfortunately, don't seem to have any actual, specific coloration to them that I'm picking up on. It's basically just the same color as the rest of the body. Really nicely detailed overall, for sure. The Captivz figures always have some fantastic, really well done detail. And something that they've also been kind of incorporating would be like injuries and scars and stuff. You can see this one has some scars here on the shoulder area. But that's really about it for the Stegosaurus. It's definitely not the best version of this figure out quite yet. And, from certain aspects, it looks like maybe the darker wash that they have on this might be a little bit too intense in certain spots, but I still think it looks pretty decent. We also have had the Pteranodon in the past, and now this newest version just has like a mixture of reds and kind of like light greens, it looks like. And there's also a nice dark wash that allows a lot of the detail to pop quite beautifully. Something I really do like about the Captivz line is the fact that they include dark washes. Sometimes it looks a little bit too intense, like we just saw in the Stegosaurus, but other times, like this Pteranodon, I think it definitely looks quite nice. You can see that this time we have, some injuries. We've got a bloody look there to the wing of the Pteranodon. Of course, we have already gone over the sculpt of this in the past, so we don't need to do that. Basically, just what's different on this one. We've got a nice red tongue. You can see we have like greenish or yellowish eyes with a black pupil. Maybe a little bit too much paint there in the eyes, but considering these are mass-produced kind of minifigures, I don't expect perfection when it comes to the paint scheme, or I actually should have said paint application, but even considering, you can see that it is really nicely done from, of course, a detailing standpoint, but also a paintwork standpoint on something so small. I really feel like the Captivz figures always have way better sculpt and paint, more so than pretty much any other minifigure. You can see it's the same style of paintwork here for the underside. Nothing really all that different down here compared to what we saw on the upper side. Just a nice mixture of colors. You can see that continue throughout the course of the legs, where we have like mixtures of reds and greens and stuff. Pretty cool looking. I don't think it actually resembles any, pterosaur that we've seen as far as like a Pteranodon goes, specifically from the Jurassic films, but neither did that Stegosaurus that we had just taken a look at. So it's just kind of a, a really cool original version from the Toy Monster International line. And then we've got ourselves the Metricanthosaurus, and I think it looks pretty cool. One thing I really do like about this is the paint scheme. I think the paint scheme's nice, natural, and the paint application as well looks great. We also have a dark wash on this one, which, kind of highlights the detail, but also sort of creates almost that, dirty type of a look like you would expect to see on a dinosaur, so that's definitely a plus. You have kind of like an upright position almost for this, but the tail obviously isn't on the ground. The proportions are definitely a little bit off as far as this guy goes. You can see the tail's a little bit too short, and the head looks like it might be a little bit too big. But as a whole, it still sports some really nice fine detail for sure, and a pretty nice looking head sculpt. You can see that we've got what appears to potentially be like a black eye. It also looks like there might be a little extra color variation in there, but it's a little hard to tell. We've got the teeth painted out, a little sloppy as far as that goes, and my camera doesn't want to focus on it, but the teeth paint there is a little sloppy. You can see we also have a purple coloration there for the inside of the mouth. You can see the tongue sculpted out in there. All of the teeth actually look really nice as far as a sculpting standpoint. I think just, on the upper jaw specifically, there's a little bit more paint than probably should have been added there. As you move down, though, you can see like skin wrinkles and some more really nice skin detail, skin texture. You've also got some skin wrinkles in the stomach region. The underside also sports some pretty nice detailing. This one has some scars you could see right there, rather than, open wounds. We don't have any nail paint, but the feet look really cool. You can see a very bird-like foot sculpt on our Metricanthosaurus, which is definitely nice to see. You also have dew claws over there, just unfortunately no actual paint on the nails, but you can see that again, these stripes here run along the back. The majority of the body's kind of like almost like an olive green, but you have stripes that run along the back all the way from the head all the way out onto the tail. Really nice, again, really natural looking paint job, I think, for the Metricanthosaurus. And it's an interesting pose for it, kind of again in an upright position, almost looking like a mixture of a vintage dinosaur with more of a modern type of a look because the tail's up off of the ground, but still pretty decent looking, honestly. Not great. It's definitely not one of Toy Monster International's best figures, but it's still a really cool one, and it's absolutely awesome to have this species in the Toy Monster International Captivz line. Then we've got ourselves the Parasaurolophus, and this one I absolutely love. I actually do have to give a huge shout out. I believe the Pteranodon I had acquired from Plush Boy Q, I'm pretty sure that's who I had traded for. This one I actually was able to get from Killer Shrew Fan, who, at the last minute stepped up and let me know that he had one of these. I was looking everywhere for this one. I couldn't find it when it was briefly at my local Five Below. I ended up missing out on it. Probably a lot of you had seen me making posts on the community section, kind of trying to get a hold of this one last minute, and really nobody had any leads for me on this one. But luckily, Killer Shrew Fan stepped up and awesomely hooked me up with this figure, so a huge shout out to him for being incredible and allowing me to get the one figure that I couldn't actually find from this line. But you can definitely see some really nice sculpt and detail on the Parasaurolophus. We have a nice turn in the neck as it's kind of looking behind it, clearly letting out some sort of a vocalization. You can see the tongue there on the inside of the mouth painted with a purple. Really nice brown coloration for the beak that runs up over the crest. The crest also has some nice sculpt and detail to it. You can see a nice black eye there, a white face, and then a little bit of an alternate shade of brown that runs up over the top of the eye and then down behind. As we lead down, you can see the turn in the neck is actually nicely displayed in the sculpt as well. This is the same sculpt that we had for the Dominion version, but it's the original version, obviously with an alternate paint application. You can see what this head looks like on this side. Pretty nice looking. You've got the spinal column there kind of elaborated on the back of the neck, and you can see that, of course, running down the course of the body. This one has some really cool tones of coloration as we have different variations of browns, quite a bit of it, as well as a dark wash again that really highlights the detail. And you can see an alternate shade of brown kind of striping back there along the spinal column, as well as more of the white up there. So again, lots of color on this one. We have some scars here right in the stomach region of our Parasaurolophus. Nice muscle definition sculpted out within the limbs. You've got some nicely sculpted out nails, but they don't actually appear to have any specific nail paint. Kind of, but I think that's just because the original coloration might have been similar to what we see there on the nails, and then they've applied some of like these browns over it. But like if you look at the opposing leg over there, you can see how the coloration of the nail matches the rest of the foot pretty nicely. So I don't think there is any actual color added to the nails, but I could be wrong. Kind of looks like maybe there is right there. A little hard to tell. Some nice skin wrinkles and stuff in the stomach region. Again, nice looking tail as we lead out the length of the tail with a slight curve. So beautiful looking Parasaurolophus. I don't know if I prefer this one or the Dominion version, but I am so psyched to officially have this one now in my collection. Nice light coloration for the underside as well. Really would have been sad had I missed out on this because it's a really nice looking version of this Parasaurolophus. So definitely happy to have this one. And then we've got ourselves the Pachycephalosaurus, and I will say this guy looks a little bit weird to me. Definitely not the best one that Toy Monster International has released so far. You could see a decent looking head sculpt, I guess. You've got some alright looking detail. You have a nice mixture of kind of like a pinkish type of a tone for a lot of the body, but then you have like a white dry brushing there over the face, kind of a black there on the beak area, and then a black here for some of the bumps up there on the top of the head. Of course, you have some nice looking detail there in the dome skull, as well as, again, that nice white dry brushing. You have some black that runs down there under the eye, as well as a black eye itself. And then a little bit more black here on the back of the dome skull. As you lead back, you start to get some designing here with a black. You can also see that we do have a pretty nice wash applied to it, kind of a darker wash, almost like a dark gray wash. But one thing that this figure is kind of lacking is you don't see much detail-wise. Like, it's actually kind of shocking to see a Toy Monster International figure that doesn't have that good of skin texture to it. Like, it's okay for what it is. It's just not what I would expect from the Toy Monster International line. And you can clearly see that the proportions are really quite off on this one. The head sculpt is huge. The tail sculpt is also quite short. So not the best one for sure, but it's also not terrible. I mean, it kind of has like the basic gist of what a Jurassic, I guess you could say, park or world style Pachycephalosaurus would look like, but I think I just kind of expected it to be a little bit better, especially when it comes to the fine detailing of the figure. The paintwork looks nice, I will definitely say that, but like even looking at the muscle definition, like it's kind of flat as far as the detail goes, doesn't really show very much to it, but still, again, it's an alright one. And then the final three that we have here are all figures we've had in the past, but we have metallic versions. You can see we've got the Dimorphodon with a silver appearance for this one, and I do like the kind of metallic dinosaurs and stuff that, well, this isn't a dinosaur, it's a flying reptile, but I do like the fact that we have, you know, these really cool metallic versions and stuff. You can actually see injuries here on the wing, but they're not painted out, of course, being an entirely silver type of a version, or chrome, whatever you'd like to call it, but still a really cool looking version of that beautiful looking Dimorphodon. And then as far as the Spinosaurus goes, this one is a kind of metallic green, which as well looks really neat. I will say Toy Monster International does a phenomenal job when it comes to these kind of, you know, rare limited versions, when it comes to these metallic type looks. I've never seen them look better. Like, the Mattel Jurassic World line releases similar figures like this, where they have, like, you know, special versions where they're like metallic and stuff, but they never look near as nice as what I see on these Toy Monster International versions, in my opinion. And that's definitely a really neat looking Spinosaurus. And these versions, the kind of metallic versions, are always like the harder to find, more limited versions. So it's always neat to be able to get a hold of these. And then we have the Ankylosaurus, which again has that metallic type of a look. Pretty cool looking figure, really, really nice looking, you know, application of the paint. It's just that there's no real paint application aside from the metallic color, and then we have that Jurassic logo, that silver or chrome look for that on the underside. But again, neat to have these ones. They're just not ever really all that great, except for the Pyroraptor from the Dominion one I am in love with, but still pretty neat additions, and it's always, again, fun to find these more rare, limited versions. Now, of course, these figures don't have any actual articulation, but because they're kind of popped together, they sort of can have articulation at the same time. For the Ankylosaurus, it would be the tail. You can kind of swivel it. So it's, you know, a little bit touchy, because if you swivel it too much, it'll pop right out. You can see it's already starting to leave the space there. But again, you can technically articulate it. For the Spino, same deal with the tail. The head, I think, is already attached when you get the figure. The Parasaurolophus, same deal. Tail, nowhere else has any type of articulation. I actually do like it when they come like this, because even though it's a little less articulation, it's nice not to have to pop other areas in, because sometimes it can be a hassle. For the Dimorphodon, we do have the neck can swivel, because that's where we attach that one together. Pachycephalosaurus, again, it's the tail. I do like, as far as the Pachy goes, he's probably my least favorite potentially of all time when it comes to these Captivz figures, but I like that he's kind of crouched down looking like he's either feeding or potentially about to, headbutt another dinosaur. The Stegosaurus has articulation kind of in the front half, although it's not moving too well right now, and then again in the tail. That one's not that smooth. We also have the Pteranodon, which has neck kind of swiveling action, sort of. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it for the Pteranodon. And then the Metricanthosaurus, yet again, is just the tail. We can't really articulate anything else. Again, it comes put together like that already. So, really cool figures for sure. It's always fun to have a minifigure that actually kind of has a little articulation. Size-wise, we're not really going to measure them. We'll just hold the tape over top here. But if you have any of the Captivz from the past, you're definitely going to know what the size of these are. They're right in the same size range as pretty much all of the other Captivz, aside from the newer Dominion-like supersized versions. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pachycephalosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Captivz figures here, and you can definitely see again that they fall right in the same similar size range to all types of minifigures like this. If you have one Captivz Toy Monster International type figure, you're definitely going to know again how big these ones are. So it is fun to actually finish off this wave again because it was put on hold for a little bit. And one thing that was really neat about this wave was it was super exclusive. Like, it only appeared very briefly at a very small number of stores, mostly Five Below. It's the only store I actually ever found these at. But that was, cool in a way because you can get a hold of these figures and they're more rare, but bad at the same time because it was kind of like, terrifying to think that I might not get that Parasaurolophus and I won't have a chance to get it again because they're moving so quickly onto the Dominion line. However, Dominion Wave 2 has actually just started to hit different Walmarts, and in that wave of, the Dominion figures, it seems as though we have quite a few repeats from this wave. Like, I believe I saw the Metricanthosaurus. I think I also saw the Parasaurolophus, so I think they're the same paint schemes as well. I'm not positive on that as I haven't found any in my area as far as Wave 2 goes yet, but I'm pretty sure they are the same paint jobs and everything. So it's definitely nice to know that other people will have a chance to pick them up. And I had heard from Toy Monster International that they will be making another appearance at some point as far as this wave goes, sometime later on in the summer. So maybe they meant that with the Dominion line. I'm not too sure because I feel like it would be weird to go from Dominion back to the Clash Edition. But regardless, this is another fun, set of Captivz Clash Edition figures. The Pteranodon is pretty cool. Not my favorite, I would say, out of the Pteranodons that we've seen so far, but it's still a pretty decent looking one. The paint application is fairly nice, just not anything amazing. Of course, the sculpt is quite nice. The Metricanthosaurus, I do love the fact that we have a Metricanthosaurus included in it, but the proportions are a little bit strange on that one. Not terrible, but you can definitely see they are off a little bit. Still a pretty nice looking figure with a really nice paint job. The Pachycephalosaurus might be my least favorite out of all of the Captivz figures I've seen so far, just because it's a little bit weird looking. But at the same time, it's cool to have a Pachycephalosaurus in the line, and it has an okay looking paint job, just not the best sculpt in the world. The Stegosaurus as well is another one that suffers from some kind of strange proportion issues, like the head being a bit larger, but that one I just always kind of took it as like a juvenile Stegosaurus approaching adulthood. Maybe the head is just still looking a little bit larger. I'm not too sure, but it has a cool looking paint job. Nothing amazing, but decent looking, I guess. Then we have the Parasaurolophus, which is definitely my favorite out of the ones that we have for this half of Wave 2. I love that Parasaurolophus. So happy to have it in my collection. Nice looking sculpt, nice looking paint job, just an overall gorgeous figure. And then you have the metallic versions with the Ankylosaurus, which is pretty cool. Not the biggest fan of the sculpt of the Ankylosaurus, but it's still pretty decent looking and a nice, again, metallic type of a look. You have the Dimorphodon, which definitely looks nice. Pretty cool paint job for that one with that kind of chrome type of a color. And then you also have the Spino with that green metallic look. I think out of the metallic ones this time around, I would say the Spinosaurus is my favorite, but overall another really cool group of Captivz Jurassic World figures. So if you are interested in these, unfortunately I think at this point it'll be a little hard to find them specifically from this wave, but you can always check the internet, Mercari, eBay, or just wait and see if they show back up in the Dominion line, because they already have started to do that. One way or another, definitely another fun round of figures. So if you can find them, make sure you pick them up. Otherwise, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.